Every journey gets us closer to the same truth. We all need connection.
You are watching In Conversation This Week with Miceal O'Hurley.
This is Miceal O'Hurley with Diplomacy in Ireland. You're watching another episode of In Conversation This Week, our special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have with us today on the line from Lviv, I think, Ostap. Ostap, how are you?
Thanks. I'm okay. We are helping people on the front line. Now I'm in a coordination center for internally displaced persons. We are collecting medicines. We are collecting money and other necessary things for the people, for Ukrainian troops fighting in Kyiv and in other parts of Ukraine, where severe battles take place now in these minutes.
Ostap, is there a sense that the government is still in control?
Now the situation is it's very tough, but we have control. The Ukrainian government, Ukrainian local administrations have control over all Ukrainian cities. Yesterday, situation was more unstable. Now we can say that there are no cities, no towns, no territories in Ukraine which are under control of occupiers. Though they are still attacking, and they're attacking the objects of civil infrastructure. For example, power plants. They are using rocket systems. They are shelling civil objects like houses, buses, transport infrastructure, bridges. Recently, the oil depot near Kyiv in Vasilkiv was shelled by Russian missiles, and now it's a huge fire there. It's not only the infrastructure catastrophe for Ukraine, but it's also potentially an ecological, huge ecological catastrophe in Eastern Europe. Now we are firefighters and rescue forces try to extinguish the fire, but it's very hard now due to the military situation in Ukraine.
I know it's difficult. Information is spotty. Do you believe that Ukraine can hold out?
Yes, I believe. Ukraine, now we can observe an absolutely extraordinary solidarity in Ukrainian society. We could not observe it since Maidan in 2014. Even during the Maidan revolution, we could not observe such solidarity, such so high level of helpfulness in Ukraine. And this is not only a huge threat to Ukrainian and world democracy, but it is also a very serious exam for Ukrainian civil society, and this a huge privilege, and the real treasure what we have in comparison to the aggressors, to the aggressive Kremlin regime, is civil society and democracy. And for example, non-government organizations, civil movements are very active now in helping troops and helping Ukrainian military forces. There are no nationalist groups as Russian propaganda claims. There are no terrorist groups which fight on Ukrainian side. We have Ukrainian military forces and the civil society helping them to fight Russian aggressors.
Ostap, I'm very much concerned about the information that Ukrainians are getting. Russia has been very aggressive at a hybrid warfare in which they try to undermine the government by confusing the population. Do you feel confident that the news you are getting is reliable?
We are using very many sources of information. We have no information blockade. We use official informations from Ukrainian army. We use information from the Office of President, but also all the informations we are getting from the official sources are proved by the witnesses. We are witnessing the military conflict, aggressive war, in the conditions of free informational exchange. Luckily, we don't have any information blockade, internet blockades in Ukraine. No sites, no social networks are blocked in Ukraine. We can use everything and compare situation from different sources. We are in much better situation than Russian society, where the problem with censorship is incomparably higher than in Ukraine. Now we can use the huge number of different sources, and of course we are aware that some of them are manipulated, some of them are under Russian influence or under direct Russian control, and there is also we have to handle also information provocations within Ukrainian information sphere, but of course it's also a hybrid war. It's not only the real war, the war of weapons, but it's also informational war. We have to be aware of it.
I reviewed a Ukrainian website. My wife is Ukrainian and obviously reads both Russian, which is a secondary language, but her primary language is Ukrainian. And Russians were taunting Ukrainians by asking where the finest restaurants are in Kyiv that they can book tables, and what hotels will be left standing for when they visit their newly acquired Kyiv. Do you think this will have a negative effect on morale, or will it inspire the Ukrainian people to fight even harder?
That's what we are observing totally today. This we have the fourth day of Russian-Ukrainian war, and we can observe not only a number of provocators in Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian countryside, but we can also observe the change of general strategy of Russian troops in Ukraine. We can observe that they now they fight. They are targeting civilians deliberately, probably to evoke panic among Ukrainian civilians, to gain the protest effect. Maybe they count on their plan is to evoke anti-government, anti-presidential movements in Ukraine, but the result is totally different. It evokes more even stronger will to fight, more solidarity in Ukrainian society, and I think it's a unifying thing that this change of it's a very tough. We have very tough situation, and the facts that we are learning today about the facts of shelling civil objects. For example, about 3 hours ago, the bus with civilians was shot up by Russian troops in the Sumy region in northern Ukraine, and they did not let. I don't know what the situation is now, in this moment, but the Russian troops did not let ambulances for a longer time. So the doctors have to break through to this shot bus, to dismiss the bus with a number of victims. They have to break through there on foot. So this is not just a military operation, as Russians say, as it's a crime against humanity, and I think it will be treated as a real humanitarian catastrophe.
Are civilians being asked to maintain copies of videos and photographs so that Ukraine can support the evidence that war crimes are being inflicted by the Russian forces on Ukraine?
Yes, sure. Yes, sure. Many people collect such evidence. Luckily, we have different instruments to do this, and there are also centers, special centers of documentation, which collect this evidence. One of these centers recently was opened in Warsaw. We also have many centers in Ukraine where such evidence is being collected. So we really we will have enough evidence, enough documents, videos, audio recordings to present afterwards.
Ostap, I'm an old soldier. I'm a defense and security analyst. I've covered wars for 30 years as a journalist. One of the things I've seen repeatedly is an attempt to make the civilian population turn against their government. This is done by continuous attacks, destroying critical civil engineering and infrastructure like water and electricity. And we're seeing that unfold in Ukraine. What is unique for me as an observer is seeing that the Russians are not collecting their dead, that they're continuing to advance, that the propaganda being flooded in Russia is designed to keep mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters from knowing their loved ones are being murdered for an unjust war. Do you believe that the Russian morale will allow them to continue this fight? Do you have evidence that it's ebbing away? What's your assessment?
We can also observe what is going on in Russian information sphere. We have an access to Russian TV channels, to Russian, not all, some of the TV channels, some of official Russian TV channels are banned in Ukraine for a longer time, since 2014. But of course, we can observe what is going on in social networks, what is going on in of course we can watch Russian YouTube, and we are aware that the Russian government lies to its people, and they have completely distorted image of what is going on now in Ukraine. Most of them believe that they have a minimal number of victims from the Russian side, and Ukrainian government, Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, established a special website and a Telegram channel with evidence of victims, Russian victims in Ukraine. The site and this social network channel is especially addressed to Russians, to Russian families, to create a possibility for them to find their children, their sons, the soldiers and officers who were killed in Ukraine. And this is not only the informational politics, not only the will to let ordinary Russian people know what is going on with their children in Ukraine, but it is also an instrument of anti-propaganda politics. We are showing the real situation for Russians, and we hope that it will give a necessary effect that Russian society will one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow, they will be ready to protest against their government after they realize the real scale of this humanitarian tragedy.
I get reports along the border checkpoints that there are up to 30, if not 40-hour waits to cross the border for safety for evacuees. I spoke to the head of the UNHCR mission in Poland. The scale of the human debacle, the unfolding humanitarian crisis is overwhelming. And yet the Polish people are opening their homes, sharing their food, their clothing. And yet I spoke to an older woman, a survivor of World War II, and she told me the story of how the Russians used to bomb the tree lines to kill evacuees. And the Ukrainian people will not stay on the roadside. They're fleeing into the tree lines just in case Russian missiles or aircraft strafe them. There's been reports of drones owned and commanded by the Russians overflying, civilians fleeing. Do you have any information in this regard?
We are getting a lot of information of this type, and we know that that the Russian troops do not let people evacuate from the cities. Yesterday, the city of Sumy was under Russian control. Yesterday and 2 days ago, southern Ukrainian city of Kherson was also occupied by Russian troops, and they are really attacking objects, civilian objects, the civilian transport, especially today. Today is the hardest day in terms of this anti-civilian strategy. I can call it strategy. It's not only we can speak not about some separate facts, some separate incidents, as it was in previous days, but today we can claim that it's a deliberate tactics of Russian troops to attack civilians. Nevertheless, many countries, not only neighboring countries like Romania, where there are many Ukrainian refugees now, and Moldova and Poland, and Lithuania and other countries of Central Eastern Europe, they're open to Ukrainian refugees, and they are organizing special centers for refugees, and their support is really very, very important for us in this situation. The borders are opened despite the long queues. For example, on Ukraine-Polish border, it is the mere procedure of crossing the border for Ukrainian citizens is simplified now. We can observe real support and a lot of helpfulness from the, for example, Polish side and Romanian side as well. But due to military situation, the border is closed for Ukrainian men, the men who are Ukrainian citizens of age between 18 and 50 years old. So this is because it's a wartime regulation.
Ostap, I have reports that the Hungarians have effectively closed their border on order from their president, Viktor Orban, when he returned from Moscow and expressed support for Russia. Is this true? I've not been able to confirm it.
I can't confirm it. Well, the Ukrainian-Hungarian relations have been quite complicated for a longer time, and if it's true, I cannot prove it, but it would not be surprising. Nevertheless, Hungary supported a cutting off Russia from SWIFT, global SWIFT system. So we can observe also some support from Hungarian side as well, but I cannot prove this information. So now
there are three incidents which, to me, define the war to date. The first were 13 brave young Ukrainian men and women on what the West calls Snake Island, who, when they were demanded to surrender, replied, "Fuck off." There was an old woman who walked straight up to Russian soldiers with seeds from sunflower plants, and she gave them to them and told them that they were for their death so that sunflowers would at least grow from their bodies. Then President Zelensky was offered to be evacuated by the United States government for his safety and to assure the continuity of Ukraine's government. And his answer was, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. This is where the fight is. Do those stories surprise you?
Where they are shocking, the stories are shocking, but looking from the inside of the Ukrainian situation, of the circumstances we are in, it's also that it's, first of all, these incidents are illustration of huge willingness of Ukrainian people to unite and to defend their country solidarily, and to go straightly to the victory. And regarding the soldiers on Snake Island, of course, it is already a history. It's an outstanding example of heroism, but we also have informations which are not yet proved, but we have it's the information which gives hope that they are probably they are alive and they are transported. They were not killed by Russian troops, but that they are transported to Crimean Peninsula. So we hope they are alive. I'm sure that there are even more examples of such brave behavior, which will be unfolded, and we will learn about it later, because despite the as I said, the good situation with internal information, the internal circulation of information in Ukraine, and luckily we don't have problems with internet and telephone connections. I suppose that I suspect that there are many things, many incidents that we yet do not know about. Very many processes are simultaneous now in Ukraine.
Ostap, it's not a time to review recent history. Many Ukrainians I speak to are still angry that Europe didn't come to their aid prior to this war in a way that would have allowed Ukraine itself to defend itself without foreign troops to assist them. Today, the common theme I hear from those that I interview is that Ukraine doesn't want to join NATO, but NATO should want to join Ukraine. You're fighting for your freedom, for your future. Is there a sense in Ukraine that you're also fighting for Europe's future?
Yeah, sure. I think that what is going on now, that what we can observe in Ukraine is a front line of European democracy, European and world democracy. It's not the Eastern European affair. This is not our local Russian-Ukrainian business. It's a real war. It's a real battle for democratic future of the world, of Europe and all Western world. I think that for Ukraine is one more exam of its European identity and its willingness to be a part of Europe, of Western democratic world. We are ready to fight for it. It's not only declaration. We are ready to defend democratic values with weapons in our arms. And regarding the interpretation of European statements and the whole position of European leaders of the European countries and European society, it's different. You can really hear now in Ukraine. I must admit that the level of emotions of Ukraine is very high now. Of course, we have to take it into account, but the total general expectation what we have regarding Europe and the Western world now, it concerns first of all air defense. I know we are aware that it is difficult, but we are expecting the establishing the no-fly zone over Ukraine to make our sky free from Russian aircrafts. Of course, it provides. Of course, it means that NATO member states have to defend actively our sky. It means the active military participation of the neighboring NATO countries in our conflict.
Well, there's
of course it's a very hard decision, but it's a question of our survival today.
There's certainly precedent in Bosnia-Herzegovina during the war. NATO acted without United Nations Security Council authorization to protect civilians who were undergoing a genocide. A no-fly zone would at least allow Ukrainians a chance to defend their homeland on the ground. But as you say, NATO must make that decision. Last question for you. How long can Ukraine hold out without such intervention by NATO and European forces to at least give Ukraine a fighting chance?
It's very hard to predict. Today, the situation in Ukraine is more stable than it was yesterday or 2 days ago. But we cannot predict the future actions, future decisions of Russian aggressors. They can use different types of weapons, even the most dangerous. So the real now we are successfully defending ourselves on the ground, but yes, our most sensitive point is air security. Yesterday, I spent more than 5 hours in a bomb shelter. I'll remind that I'm physically in Lviv, which is not so severely attacked as, for example, Kyiv, the capital, or the other parts of central, eastern, or southern Ukraine. But we are constantly threatened from the air. This is our most important problem now. How long can we carry on in this situation. Well, I hope that our resources are quite strong now, and I'm observing that we are gathering medicines and money for. We are collecting everything what is needed, what is necessary for our troops, and regarding this very strongly accumulated resource of civil society in Ukraine, yes, we will survive. That it's not the question of the final solution of the result of war, because I know that we will win, but the time necessary for this victory every day for us means thousands of deaths, not only deaths of soldiers, but also the deaths of civilians. This is the key question.
Ostap, I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to ask you to stay safe, stay in touch. This is Miceal O'Hurley with Diplomacy in Ireland, the European Diplomat. We've heard from yet another Ukrainian who's spoken about his determination to see that Ukraine has a future. Europe must now decide if it has a future, if the values and principles upon which this European experiment in democracy was unveiled can be sustained, is truly not being determined in Berlin or Brussels, The Hague, or in Paris or Berlin, but on the streets and in the fields of Ukraine. It's they who are willing to fight and die for Europe. They deserve our support. We will have to wait and see if it comes. Europe's future is in the balance as much as Ukraine's. We thank you, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
$300 million years ago, there was no Africa, Asia, Americas, or Europe. Just one big supercontinent, Pangea. And today, there is still a force connecting those divided by distance, reversing millions of years of rifting. Making far feel close, bringing there to here. Turkish Airlines.